So welcome everyone to Compassionate Mediation for Marital Conflict Resolution. Why ever you are here, I want to serve you. So I'm live on LinkedIn where you can come to the forefront and actually ask me a question. And I hope you do, because I'm truly here to respond to why you might be here. You might be a therapist, a coach, an attorney, clergy, counselor. You might have issues in your own relationship. What's ever going on for you right now, I want to give you the benefit of my 35 years of experience as an internal family systems therapist. Excuse me. I'm a mediator and attorney. I'm also a Tropa certified teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. And I like to say that compassionate mediation blends emotional and spiritual healing along with legal and financial information and support. So for those of you listening, at any time you want to raise your hand, I'm going to bring you up. And for those of you on YouTube, I'm going to bring up some slides that you can join me. If you're in LinkedIn live on the audio, you can go to the bottom of the picture and get the live to YouTube and join me there. But however you're joining me, so what we're going to talk about today is how compassionate mediation helps and what compassionate mediation is. And compassionate mediation is actually a hybrid of counseling and mediation. So what that means is you can go from having a conversation about whether you want to make your relationship better, whether you want to separate, get divorced, pass a divorce, or you might be a professional that works with someone in this situation. So compassionate mediation is a form of conflict resolution. And it helps people communicate from their highest and best self. And what does that mean to be in self? What it means is you get in touch with that calm, compassionate presence inside of you that allows you to listen to compassionately witness the feelings of your partner. Because most of the time that doesn't happen. Most of the time when a couple is locked in conflict, they have the same filters through which they're judging their partner. And they have the same reactions to each other that just keeps conflict going. So let's take a deep breath for those of you who are joining me here on the replay. And just bring yourself present. And imagine how you feel when you're in conflict with someone. Imagine how you feel when you're judging them or angry at them or sad or hurt. And take a breath and access the part of you that's connected to your deepest truth, that's connected to your higher self, that's connected to the God in you. That's the self through which we help our clients and ourselves resolve conflict. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a case right now of John and Jane, just as an example. You might be one of them. You may have clients like them. I get a call from Jane, and she got my name from someone, and she's very upset because she believes her husband is having an affair. And she doesn't know what she wants to do. She thinks she might want to get divorced. She doesn't know if marriage counseling will work. And she's very upset. And she comes to my office still very upset. And what she wants to do is tell me her whole story. And the whole time we're together. And I listened for a few minutes, but then I ask her some specific questions that allow her to tell me what's really going on. And what we do is we help her see the perspective from her partner's point of view as well as herself. Because as Thich Nhat Hanh says, we can be the change we want to see in our relationship. We can bring compassion into our relationship, which then allows for change to happen. And I often say that if people would do as much work on themselves before they get divorced as they have to do if they get divorced, there'd be a whole lot more intact families. So what we want to do is we want to help people begin a dialogue with their partner about everything. And if you're working with an individual, it doesn't matter because they can bring these skills back to their relationship. If you're working with two people at the same time, it gives both of them an opportunity to talk about everything. And when I say everything, it gives them the opportunity to talk about the parts that can't decide if they want to stay or go. Because oftentimes in marriage counseling, people don't talk about a part that's ambivalent. They think that they have to go through the program and just talk about what it would be to stay together. But Jane didn't want to stay together. Jane wanted a divorce. She didn't know what John was willing to do. But we had to welcome into the conversation the part of Jane that wanted to leave. And I tell John, who didn't want a divorce, that he has to be willing to talk about the emotions that got them there, as well as what would it take to get divorced. And I tell Jane that if she just talks about divorce without talking about the emotions that got them there, then John is going to leave the process and not participate. So compassionate mediations gives you a safe forum to talk about everything. And in talking about everything, you give each person a chance to share their honest appraisal with each other, meaning what would be their magic wand solution. So when I first meet John and Jane, I talk to them separately and I ask them, if you had a magic wand, what do you hope will happen? Well, Jane will hope that he'll give up the affair and come back and create a new marriage. And John might hope that Jane might stop drinking and he can still have his affair. So when I meet with them, I have to see, where are they headed? What are they looking to accomplish? And what I try to do in the first session is actually do a meditation that helps them get to self and see their situation from a different perspective. Because when you ask your partner for understanding from your higher self, where you give empathy to their feelings as well, you can begin a whole new dialogue. And in that dialogue, you can talk about everything. You can talk about finances, budget, parenting. You can talk about sex. And in that conversation, you facilitate it so that the forum becomes safe for every issue to be discussed respectfully. And if you're listening from a place of having problems in your own relationship, this is for you too, because what you're going to do is create a space where you can connect with your partner and begin to share the pain and sadness that are underneath the anger and the resentment. And when you talk about sex, it's often, I'll just share Albert Einstein's quote: men marry women hoping they'll never change. Women marry men hoping to change them. And inevitably, they're both disappointed. And what that means is they finally come to you for either counseling or maybe divorce because they can't change the other person, but they can change themselves. But when they get in touch with how angry they've been, or how many walls they've built around their heart, or the filters through which they're judging their partner, he always does this, she never does that, guess what happens to sex? It goes out the window. So as you help your clients, or as you help yourself, speak for your parts, unburden the pain from the past, and really have compassion first for what you're feeling and ultimately for what your partner is feeling. Then you can make calm, confident, compassionate decisions for your future that reflect the highest good for all concerned. And guess what happens in the bedroom? Things improve. If you're not judging, if you're not defensive, if you're not blaming, if you're actually coming from what I'm calling your higher self, that calm, clear, compassionate center, then truly everything starts to improve in your life. And allow for some forgiveness. So let's take a breath here. And just imagine that if you could forgive yourself and your partner, and if you can help your clients do the same, then miracles do happen. And when you teach them the miracle of empathy, when you help yourself or your clients learn how to use I messages instead of you messages. And the I messages are, when you do something, I feel hurt and sad. Not when you do something, you're being a jerk, but when you do something, this is my experience. And you hopefully help your partner learn how to listen, understand, and empathize without defending, without reacting, without defending in a way that makes you feel like they don't get it. So teaching your clients and learning yourself how to have empathy that leads to forgiveness sets you free, no matter what your relationship's going to do in the future. And one of my clients said that after she worked with me, she expressed gratitude because it helped her see the true issues and the roots underneath them. So when you're working with clients that have relationship issues, or when you are in a relationship yourself and you keep reacting from the same parts of you that are defensive and protective, you don't often see the true issues underneath. And my client said that she saw the true issues and the roots that the issues came from, whether it's early childhood, whether it's other relationships. And she said, with my assistance and guidance, she felt heard and understood for the first time and understood what was going on in the relationship. It made her a better partner. It made him a better man and friend. And even though their relationship transitioned into a divorce, they did it peacefully and respectfully. And as I like to say, families need not be broken, they can be peacefully and respectfully restructured. So if any of you would like to ask a question, now is a good time to raise your hand. I have lots more to share, but since you're here, I would love to, and any of you listening on YouTube or any other place, just put your questions in. I'll be able to answer them. But I'm going to go on. So let's talk about some of the things that lead to conflict in a relationship. Let's go with the 3 A's: abuse, addiction, adultery. And when you're in that relationship or working with someone in that relationship, if you feel that there is a danger of physical abuse, you have to give them a safe harbor to go to. So research a safe house in your area, give them a recommendation to get them to safety. Emotional abuse happens much more often. It can often be as devastating, but it's more usually something that in talking, you can get to the pain underneath the anger and calm things down. So if there's abuse and it's physical, get out. If it's emotional, learn how to talk for your anger instead of from your anger. And usually someone is angry because they're so hurt. They're so hurt underneath that they've defended themselves with anger because they don't want to be vulnerable. But there's so much strength in vulnerability, and you give your clients the permission to show up and find strength in being vulnerable. Now, if there's addiction, then I give clients either a referral to go to AA if they're open, which usually they aren't if they're in denial about their addiction. But certainly if you are working with someone whose partner is an addict, I always tell that person to go to Al-Anon, to go into a 12-step program where they can learn their 12 steps for their personal growth, meaning they have no power over their partner. Step 1, they're powerless. Step 2, there is a higher power. Step 3, turn your will over to the higher power, meaning stop trying to fix, save, rescue, and control. Step 4 is take your own inventory. So I ask the partner who's married to the addict to take a look at how he or she is being. Are they being angry, judgmental, hypervigilant, blaming? And I invite them to heal that at an Al-Anon meeting and with me so that they really can show up with compassion, but they also show up with boundaries, meaning if you have a relationship with someone and they are an addict, you need to set boundaries, and you're usually working with a codependent. So just as a brief review, when we're talking compassionate mediation, we're talking about a process that blends marriage counseling with divorce mediation, because you can talk with a couple who one or both might be ambivalent about whether they want to stay or go, but you can give them all the information they need to make that decision. So when I was talking about John and Jane who called, and John was having an affair and Jane was all upset and she didn't know if she wanted to stay or go, and they came in to see me, the first thing we have to do, take a breath with me here, is help talk them off the ledge. Because many times when there's relationship problems, one or both has gotten to the point where they just feel they need to make a decision. And often that decision is, get me out of here. I want to get divorced. And I do believe that many people leave a relationship when they could stay if they knew how to communicate. And many people stay in a relationship when they should leave. but they don't have the support. They don't have the wisdom, the knowledge, the information that you can give them with compassionate mediation. Because the courage to look at an ending often leads to a new beginning. Because many times when couples come to see me, they have been fighting for years. They have threatened divorce for years. And I think one or both of them feels that they may just go another 20 or 30 years until one of them dies, and then that will be the end of their relationship. But when one of them is finally willing to talk about an ending, when one of them is truly coming from their higher self, not reacting, not threatening, not giving an ultimatum, but calmly saying, I care about you, but I don't want to have this kind of relationship anymore. So we can either create a new and better relationship together, and here's what we'll need, or we can look at what it means to end the relationship. And oftentimes, either the person is ambivalent, because it's not a linear path to divorce. It's, do I want to? No, I don't. I'm afraid, the kids, the money. So helping people calmly look at all the issues as you give them the information they need to consider. So for instance, in my first session, I do an initial intake with both Jane and John. I find out what they do to hurt each other, how they react. I ask a little bit about their family of origin, so I get to know what they've learned growing up. I ask them a magic wand question, as in, what do each of you want? How can I best support you? And then I put them back together and I explain what Jane and John both told me. John came from an alcoholic home, so he never learned how to express his feelings. Jane was the baby of the family, so she's been looking for love. John believes that working really hard is showing her love when she wants his attention. And as I'm explaining what they've shared with me, I mention to them, look what's happening to your body. Because usually their bodies start to tense up. When you mention feelings or you mention thoughts and beliefs, people tend to tense. So let's take a breath now. And I invite them to do the same. And then I do a brief meditation to take them up the mountain to get to their higher self, meaning they can separate from the parts that are angry, resentful, hurt, sad, scared, blaming, impatient, and get to a place of calm, compassionate clarity, and then send compassion to their partner. And it's in that energy, that mindful, conscious, compassionate presence, that the dialogue can continue. So whether you're talking about money, whether you're talking about parenting, whether you're talking about sex, whether you're talking about family, extended family, roles and responsibilities. Once you help your clients get to self, once you help yourself, if you're in the relationship, get to self, and listen with empathy, you can talk about everything. So if it's abuse, physical, get out, emotional, let's talk about the pain underneath. If it's addiction, mention AA to the addict and Al-Anon to the person that is loving the addict. And if it's an affair, that's another one. Because when there's an affair, what you need to do is 3 things. And you can heal from an affair. Because if there's an affair, you help people realize that the affair is one of those protective behaviors that help numb us from the pain of the relationship. In other words, many people are in pain in their relationship and they exile it, they push it aside. And then they try to manage by being hardworking or being a good wife or mother or being smart. And they sometimes put on what I call a pseudo self, where they try to pretend they're in self, they're calm, clear, and compassionate, but they're really hurt and sad. And instead what they do is they numb in some way. Eat too much, drink too much, get depressed, get divorced, go have an affair. So I try to normalize for John and Jane that the fact that she drinks and the fact that he had an affair might be their reaction to the pain that's never been acknowledged. And you create a safe forum for them to talk about the pain. And then in the second session, after you've done all that in the first session, and you can in 45 minutes, in the second session, you can teach them the miracle of empathy, where you teach them how to listen from their higher self, where the person who's sharing his or her feelings puts it into one sentence. When you go out and don't tell me where you're going, I feel hurt and sad. So John can say, I hear you say that when I leave and don't tell you, you feel hurt and sad. She can say yes. And he can say, I understand that when I leave and don't tell you, you feel hurt. And even if he's in my office reading down the page or on a Zoom call reading down the page, at least he's paying attention and showing some understanding that he's never shown his wife before. And then if he's reading down the page, what he will say is, I'm sorry, I don't want you to feel that way. I want to create a new relationship, and I'm sorry. He may not mean it totally, but I don't think he wants to hurt his wife. He may want to continue his affair. We might be talking about a separation or divorce. But until each of them feels seen and heard and empathized with, nothing's going to change. And then I'll shift off in the second session and give Jane the floor, or John the floor, to say, when you are drunk, I feel hurt and sad, maybe even scared. And Jane's going to say, well, I only get drunk because you make me crazy. It's not that, Jane. Just listen from your higher self. So hear him say that when you are drunk, he feels hurt and sad. So she says that, I hear when I get drunk, you feel hurt and sad. Is that right? He says yes. And she says, because she's reading down the page, I understand that when I get drunk, you feel hurt and sad. And she may not want to acknowledge it, but she just did. And then she says, I'm sorry. I don't want us to communicate that way. I want to learn a new way to communicate, and I'm sorry. And he might say, thank you. I never want you to take a drink again. And she might say, I can't do that, but I will be more conscious. And she might have said to him, I want you to give up your girlfriend. And he might say, I can't do that. Or he might say, I will. We don't know when we start working with them. It can go either way. So what compassionate mediation does, to recap and then give you a chance for your questions, is to teach compassionate communication, to help people get to their highest and best self, to let go of their limiting beliefs and judgments about the other person, to open their hearts and unburden the pain from the past. And then in that self-to-self conversation, you facilitate a dialogue that covers everything. What would it take? I often tell my clients, your first marriage is over. It's not about fixing it. It's not about saving it. It's about creating a new one. Who are you now? And what do you want moving forward? And then seeing if your partner and you share the same goals. And if they don't, if they become incompatible, then we shift gears, still mindful of compassionately communicating, but talking about what would happen if you did sell the house, or if you shared parenting, or any one of those subjects that actually allow you to keep your clients for a very long time. Because if you're helping them emotionally deal with the financial and legal information, you become a support system for them for months and even years. So again, I've got 35 years of experience I'd love to share with you. I'm going to give you some ways to get in touch with me and stay in touch with me. I do have a certification in this process that will be starting soon. My 5th cohort will be starting soon. But for those of you who would like to get a roadmap of the process, go to lindakroll.com/roadmap. lindakroll.com/roadmap. It will give you a whole overview of the process of compassionate mediation. If those of you who are listening for your own relationship, you can go to lindakroll.com/RA and get a relationship assessment that would allow you to see how you're being in your relationship right now. How are you showing up? What changes can be made? And I'm here to help you every step of the way. I'm going to be doing some live masterclasses soon. So if you sign up for the roadmap, you'll get information about it. But I'm still here live, and I would love to answer your questions. So does anyone in any audience have any questions for me? I'm here and available. If you do, just raise your hand. I've got a question coming in, is what's the best way to practice this if you don't understand all the tenets of it? I have lots of YouTube videos And again, if you get the roadmap, I'm going to be doing some trainings and invite you to study with me, because when you do, you'll have the ability to take practice. And what I mean by that is, no matter what you're doing now, if you're a therapist, coach, if you're a therapist or coach, the certification gives you continuing education credits from the National Board of Certified Counselors or the International Coach Federation. But for mediators and attorneys and clergy, I say this process is helpful. In other words, therapists can't be lawyers, but you can give legal information. And I give you just the right amount of legal information for you to share with your clients so that you stay one step ahead of them. And as you stay one step ahead of them, you work with the content of what they're talking about, but you're also working with the feelings. You're working with the process. You're helping them stay in self, stay conscious, stay calm, stay compassionate, so they can truly create a new relationship based on the highest good for all concerned. So in the certification, you get everything I've ever learned in 35 years to give you the templates, the outlines, the scripts, the handouts, the videos. So I will be talking more about it, but I did want you to know it's available. It's going to be, the 5th cohort starts soon. And if you're listening, I'd love to have you join me. Contact me to learn more. And for those of you on, thank you so much for showing up. And I'm going to invite you in LinkedIn now. If you have any comments, any takeaways, anything you'd like to share, please do. Oh, great tips from a Facebook user. Thank you. You're having difficulty listening. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about advancing the slides that way. I'll have to learn how to do that better. Bordell, thank you for listening. And for the rest of you who are listening, please let me stay in contact with you. I'd love to know more about you. I am truly honored that you're here. I know you have a lot of places to be. And we've gone 30 minutes. I don't want to keep you, but again, if you have any more questions, please let me know. And I look forward to joining with you again on another live, whether it's a video, audio, or at the masterclass. And thank you so much again for joining me. I look forward to staying connected with you all. Bye for now. Bye-bye. I got to end. Hold on. Thank you all for showing up. And if you had a problem with the slides, I apologize for that. This is my first time going live from LinkedIn to YouTube. So for those of you who were listening on LinkedIn, or YouTube or Facebook, I will fix that. I'm a grandmother who's getting tech savvy, and each day I'm learning more. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye for now.